Hello, my name is Daniel Nelson, and this is my presentation on the accounting scandal at WorldCom. Here I have set up a display of monitors to capture the triboard aesthetic, though I will zoom into each panel individually as I present them. First, we have the key figures at WorldCom. The stock price that drove many, and the stock price that drove many of the poor decisions that were made. On the top left, you will find Bernard Ebbers, also known as Bernie Ebbers, the former CEO of WorldCom. He was in charge of and is one of the two major people responsible for the $11 billion of fraud that WorldCom committed. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison for his role. On the top right, you will find Scott Sullivan, the former WorldCom CFO who was in charge of implementing most of the fraud that took place at WorldCom. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison for his role. In the bottom left corner, you will find Cynthia Cooper, a former internal auditor at WorldCom. She is chiefly responsible for discovering the fraud and bringing it to the attention of the board of directors, who quickly went public about the fraud. In the bottom right corner, you will find a basic timeline of the WorldCom's stock from the late 1990s until they declared bankruptcy in 2002. This obsession with the stock price was part of what drove Bernard Ebbers and had a big role for why he led the company to do what it did. WorldCom had a culture that demanded results. Their CEO created an expectation that no one sell their shares in the company because they were constantly trying to grow and go up. Failure was seen as not an option. Unfortunately, in 2000, despite a decade of growth, their attempts to continue to grow through acquisition with Sprint were blocked by the Department of Justice in fear of them creating a monopoly. The company had difficulty finding a new direction forward after. There was also a series of economic downturns at this time, such as the dot-com bubble bursting, which caused all telecommunications to struggle, but most of all, WorldCom struggled. It was also around this time that Ebers and Sullivan began to fraudulently alter revenue accounts in order to make WorldCom seem more profitable than they actually were. Their misrepresentations were not enough, however, and in 2002, Bernard Ebers was forced to resign from his position. At this time, Cynthia Coopers had also begun her investigation into the fraudulent activity being done by their executives. In just several months, she was able to report to the board of directors on her findings, and Scott Sullivan was also fired for his role in this. The board issued a restatement for all their prior year's financials, and investors lost $180 billion on the market as a result of their stock crashing from this. WorldCom filed for bankruptcy shortly after. It wasn't until 2005 that both Evers and Sullivan were convicted and sentenced for their roles in the scandal. Sullivan has been out of prison for a decade now, though Bernard Evers had only recently been released, and he passed away in February of 2020 due to poor health. The inability to accept failure was the ultimate downfall of WorldCom. The company could have found ways to turn things around had they not fallen into a inability to accept failure and use of deceit and fraud. The biggest failures are probably the most important lessons to be learned from WorldCom. It's the education I received at Emmanuel has helped exemplify that failure is just a part of life and growing. Through all these classes that you take at Emmanuel, you learn that it's not always going to be something you're comfortable with or that you're going to know everything about, and often you're going to struggle when you're outside of this comfort zone. But without that struggle, you can't grow and learn from your mistakes and broaden your horizons on things and learn different ways to approach problems than you would just learn from doing what you were good at. This is most exemplified for me in the sciences, namely in the fact that a hypothesis is more often wrong than it is right, and scientists have to keep trying different altered hypotheses until they can find one that works and gives them the result that they're looking for. Thank you for watching. This is my presentation on WorldCom. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something from it.